recording.
GM, everyone. We'll give it another minute or two here for people to filter in. All right, so we may get into some stand-up things today. We have a couple of Keep Key related demos. One is from 0x Apotheosis, who is hopefully sound asleep on the underside of the planet right now, but he was nice enough to put a video together of keep key recovery. And we also have Mr. Nerdhair going to demo some updates to the keep key updater. Mr. Nerdhair, do you have preferences of whether you go first or we check out the video from Apotheosis?
No, let's do his thing because I'm tired.
Okay. Trying to remember how that went last time. We had issues with the audio, I think, when DeFi streamed it. We ended up sharing the link and people watched. Is that right?
Yeah, I remember we were all sort of sitting in here and watching it, and it was all very silent until various people started laughing in sync, and it was very strange. But it worked.
Cool. Oh, where to put the link? General?
Engineering public, maybe? But we're in general. Yeah.
Apotheosis gets the award for having the coolest content for these demos.
Yeah. Very professionally produced.
Agreed. Okay, is link coming up in general? And we'll wait for the synchronous laughter. I guess just to give a little context, the deal here
now we can restore a keep key from an existing seed phrase directly from app.shapeshift.com by inserting an uninitialized keep key and selecting Recover Wallet.
Anyone
from the
that's
recovery settings page, we can choose the length of our seed phrase, and if our recovered wallet should have a passphrase applied.
Or beta if a native, or I guess any keep key to bring in.
We can then apply a label to our keep key. Enter and confirm a pin. And then use the mapping table displayed on our keep key to enter our seed words.
Are you guys able to hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Hey, so this doesn't just allow someone to migrate a keep key, obviously, but any seed
phrase,
from
and
any
we'll
wallet
be able
into
to access our
key,
associated
right?
wallets.
Correct. Into a keep key.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's important for the messaging. Is like anyone who wants to migrate a software wallet that they have the seed phrase for into the more secure hardware. This is an easy path for that. It's not just to migrate a keep key account.
Yep. Thank you. I totally flubbed on the context there.
That's all right.
Hey, I'm sorry. Is there a link to a demo in one of the channels that I've missed?
It's in general.
General, okay.
Well, have people had a chance to watch? Are there questions, comments?
He said Scandinavian Annika helped him with that. I assume that's the text-to-speech engine.
I believe so. I think it's the sister of the voice from last time, maybe.
Yeah, I was testing it a few times yesterday, and it's looking really, really clean and smooth. So great job, everyone who helped.
Awesome. Cool. Well, if Mr. Nerdhair had a chance to get through his coffee, it will slide right into his updated Keep Key Updater demo.
Yeah, well, about 3 seconds ago, I realized that I demoed the wrong version. So give me 1 more minute.
Okay, all good. Do we have DeFi here? The only thing I have scheduled, he's sick. Unless anyone else has surprise material, I figured maybe we'll just go into a stand-up like we did last time. I know DeFi is also working on getting the Cosmos phase 2 stuff launched.
I can try to do an impromptu demo of the new logger and named errors.
That would be great. Do you want to jump into that now to give Mr. Nerdhair a minute? Or do you need a minute or two to get set up as well?
If he needs more than the exactly 1 minute he asked for, then I can start now. What I mean is if his minute was literally 1 minute, then I'll let him finish. But if it was figuratively 1 minute, then...
There we go.
Okay, so it was literally 1 minute.
Cool. Take it away, Mr. Nerdhair.
Okay, so a little backstory here. We have fresh firmware that we needed to release to support Cosmos. Unfortunately, it turns out that the updater kind of sucked, and it wouldn't load the new firmware properly. It was all based on the old style, the old legacy ShapeShift infrastructure. So we had to give it a coat of spit and polish, and there are a few user-facing features here that got added as well. And I think I'm still sharing the wrong flipping binary, which is so stupid. Yeah. That window. Okay. You can see down here it says... Yeah, well... I uploaded this stuff to a public repo yesterday, and so I had the wrong branch checked out. So this... on the bottom right-hand corner, you can see that there's a version number now. So that's real nice. You can tell if you've got a version, which version you've got, and you can see there if there is an updated version of the updater. If there's an updated version, it goes in the firmware release manifest, and a little message will pop up here with a link to go somewhere or other and download the new thing. The updater app also is improved in that it works offline now. Well, I think I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me plug in an actual Keep Key. So this is one of my test Keep Keys. I loaded it with some demo or some debug firmware so that I'll have an update to do to the official thing. You can see here that unofficial firmware, anything that doesn't match the hashes, now says unknown instead of reporting the wrong version. You can go ahead.
No, pretty much straightforward.
Someone server move Renab 13, please.
There we go. Every time. Okay. Yeah, this updater here. I don't have a seed loaded, so I'm just going to hit that button. Follow the instructions. Tell me to verify my backup. One little new touch here is that once the update starts, that little hold and release message will disappear. So that's sort of nice.
Hey, sorry to interrupt. Is the bottom of the screen cut off for others? I don't know if you can shrink that at all. Like, we can't quite see the entire thing. At least for me, it gets cut off at the bottom by people. pictures. Yeah, that's decent.
No.
Was there more below where the?
No, there was not more. It was
on the next.
No,
on the next.
There's not more below that.
Okay.
So that's the normal flow here. If you have a bootloader update, it's the same flow, but there's there's some instructions between the bootloader update and the firmware update. But the sort of secret new feature that got added this time around is the ability to run this in an offline mode using like a firmware binary instead of connecting to some web server. If you plug in your keep key in bootloader mode, like when you're holding the button down and it says firmware update mode on the screen, you get to this screen here. And if you click here if advised by customer support, you'll get these buttons to initiate a update cycle, for either bootloader or firmware. But now if you press the shift key, you get an update from file button. And it's sort of like when you're pressing like the in iTunes to load custom firmware to your iPhone, or not custom, but like a specific version from file. You press the shift key and you get the secret option. And then the flow just proceeds as normal. So you can either use that in an offline scenario to update your keep key from like an air-gapped machine, or you can use it to load debug firmware or custom development stuff, which I just did, which is why the firmware now shows as unknown. Or you can use it to test new release process stuff. Or anyway, it's a neat feature. The updater also no longer relies on the ShapeShift legacy foundation run infrastructure. The source of truth for firmware updates comes from IPNS, or it's an IPNS name, so it's pulled from IPFS. The actual firmware binaries are hash checked and they can be hosted, anywhere, but they're on IPFS for now. There's also several failure modes that we found in the updater that may have affected users in the past, but don't anymore. Like it is important to download the firmware before you start loading it to a device. It's sort of like a race condition there. So I think the user's experience will be a lot more smooth with the new version. The updater is actually useful to them if they want to keep it around offline. It doesn't require installation on Windows anymore. It just runs in place. And it's less tied to our old legacy infrastructure, and now we just have that landing page that's still served by Axiom in the old infrastructure. Once we replace that, the keep key updater and all that stuff will be completely disconnected from the old system. So not much user facing there, but it is built with modern dependencies. It got Electron is now the current version of Electron instead of one that was 4 years old for various technical reasons. So I'm proud of it, and I think that it will make a difference to the user experience. And that's basically it.
Thank you. What did you mean about doesn't require installation on Windows? You said runs in line or something?
So the previous updaters were packaged. The Linux one would just run from the file you downloaded. That was always true. The Mac one was a DMG file, and you could drag the thing to your applications folder if you wanted, or you could run it in place off the DMG, and that hasn't changed either. But the Windows thing would launch an installer, and you'd have to install the Keep Key Updater app, which is kind of silly because you're only ever going to use the thing like occasionally, right? It doesn't really deserve space in your start menu, and it can get confusing when you download the updater. Like if the thing is out of date, because you're going to go and launch the updater, and maybe you're launching the one from your own computer, right? Which is probably the different version than the one you just downloaded.
Yep.
So now it extracts to a temporary directory and runs from there. There are also a couple secret command lines.
Consistent on Mac, like it's the same everywhere now?
Yeah, basically. I mean, on Mac you can. On Mac there's not really an installer for most apps. It's just DMG to drag it, right? But yeah, you can run in place from all the files now. There's a couple of secret command line options you can use too for dev work. You can specify a path to the update manifest. So if you really want, if you don't want to go through the whole thing where you press the shift key and use the secret options and whatever, you can mirror the whole thing, put it on a USB drive, and get a full first class as if your online experience on your air-gapped machine. Anyway.
Very cool. I had another question for you a second ago. It's escaping me. About questions from the audience. Compatibility with OS versions, specifically Windows, the bane of many of our existence.
So one of the reasons,
go for it.
I have tested this on Windows. One of the reasons that we were stuck on a 4-year-old Electron version for the updater was that there were dependencies on specific USB detection libraries that wouldn't support any newer versions. Those have been overhauled, and they now don't lock you to a particular version. They're also like newer and better and all that. So I expect that some of the Windows problems, whatever, like devices not being detected, that sort of thing, hopefully will be resolved. Other good news on the Windows compatibility front, not updater specific, but I found a couple weeks ago while researching how to my sort of side project, rewriting the KeepKey firmware in Rust. While doing that, I found some discrepancies between the way the KeepKey and the Rust implementation did their USB setup. And I looked into it and compared it with the Windows magical special USB docks. And I think I found a particular thing that's set wrong that might have caused, might be responsible for some Windows compatibility issues. So in a future firmware release, we'll fix that. We didn't want to do that at the same time we did, Cosmos and all this feature stuff. But in an upcoming firmware release, we should hopefully have better compatibility with Windows as well. I have never been able to get it to fail on Windows. That's one of the reasons it's so hard to diagnose those problems. But I think we've cracked that nut. We just have to implement it and ship it.
Yep. Cool. So we probably have testing to do so we can say like it works on Windows 95 or whatever.
Yeah. Well, the sort of the anatomy of the problem will mean that Windows is using a secret like fix-up table for incompatible USB devices. So it's the thing we're doing is broken, but we can't notice it on modern versions of Windows. So it'll only occur the problem will only happen if you're running some specific versions that haven't got that compatibility table. And so that's why it took so long to track down. Just as a side note here, I did the demo on the updater, but the new KeepKey firmware is out too. There's a new bootloader as well. there's there's a couple of security fixes in there. Recommend everybody update their firmware. You also get support for Cosmos staking and delegation and IBC transfers and all that cool new stuff that we're hoping to launch like today on app.shapeshift.com.
Cool. Thank you, Mr. Nerdhair. Are there other questions? If not, thanks again, Mr. Nerdhair. And if you're ready, Major Hayes, you can take it away.
Alrighty. This is completely off the cuff, but it's going to work perfectly. See if I can figure out. I think it's this window. Yes. Okay. Is the font's probably too small, right? There we go. All right. So first thing I want to start with is logging. So right now in web, we just console log everything out, which is okay. But we have been talking about options for log aggregation, especially in what could be our alpha version that has like Pendo and stuff. We might want to add capturing error logging to help us, identify and debug issues. There's also some benefits to logging in a more structured way. So, a lot of our errors right now are just like, we just say like the thing, this happened, and then we put in, so we embed some parameters or whatever in the log, right? And that's okay. But if you start getting a lot of errors, or we're doing log aggregation, it might be nice if instead of logging some values out like that, we could log out like, different, argument. What is all that beeping? Sorry. Discord is like beeping at me.
You can mute those for other people coming and going, or muting and unmuting.
Okay. But it would be nice if we could, have some structured login where we could say, this argument was this value. And then if you have like log aggregation, you could actually search for something. So rather than like this thing that happened, you could say, well, what I really want to log out is, the module that I was in was my module, right? The function being executed was, this function. And then like these were the arguments, right? That kind of thing. And then if you're, again, searching log aggregation, you could just say, well, find all the logs associated with this module or all the logs associated with this function, right? So you could filter the logs down that way. And we did this a lot in centralized, although we had servers there, so it was easy to do the log aggregation, but it was super helpful when we were trying to debug an issue and you had a lot of logs coming in from a lot of visitors to say, filter the logs down by just the one place where you've found where the error is coming at. And then it's really nice to see, these were the arguments that got passed in. So this function succeeded when the arguments were this, but now we're seeing this argument coming in as undefined. Oh, geez, that shouldn't happen. Why is it coming in as undefined, right? And so the structured logging, in my opinion, helps with debugging like that. So the other problem with console logging is it kind of ties us to console specifically, and we can't just swap out a different place to send the logs to. So the idea with the logger module is to have there's kind of two goals to it. One is to improve debugging by including things like namespacing of logs, so where the log is coming from, what module it's coming from, and have that standardized as opposed to right now where it's just like in the string. And then the next one is to structure the logs. And then the third one is to allow us to swap out where the logs are going. So we could log to the console, or we could send the logs, over UDP to a log aggregation service, or whatever we kind of choose to do. We can also format the output, all that kind of stuff. So what we can do is create a new logger, and loggers support namespacing. So I can say, the namespace is app, and then I'm in the module, whatever. Then I can specify the severity level that I want. So I want to log out everything, and I can specify some default fields. So default fields are properties that will always get logged out in every log entry. So that would be like what function is being executed might be a good one. And then I can specify a custom log function, but let's just start with this one for now. Oh, sorry. And I just overwrite L. Okay, well, that was stupid. Okay, so now I've got a logger. So now I can do logger.warn, and then I can pass in, the arguments to the function were, foo and bar, and that's what I get out. So I can have these really simple log statements, and I get out like a lot of detail, right? So I get out what function it was in, I get out the arguments that I passed in, I get the timestamp, I get the namespace. So here the namespace is app whatever, and I get the status of it, right? So all that stuff gets logged out. I can also, if I want to, add a message here, something happened, but rather than having to embed like foo and bar here into the message string, I can just have them separate, right? So args gets logged out there, and then the message gets added there. All right. So, and of course we can do, debug logs, and we can do trace logs. And then we can do this child loggers. So what a child logger allows us to do is add to the namespace. So I'm going to add, child to the namespace. And then for this one, I'm going to set the log level to warn. Okay. So, whoops, I got to set it to a variable. Right. So now if I log with this guy out and I say a.trace, foo bar, and the thing, it doesn't do anything because the log level is set to warn. So that's just a no op right there. All right. Then if I go to warn, I get, notice the namespace here. So in this case, the child logger, I only specified child as the namespace, but because it's, because it's a child of it, it appends to the parent's namespace. So every time I create a child logger, I can keep adding onto this namespace. So this is really convenient where you have like a module, you can create a module logger like at the top that has the module namespace, and then inside of a function, you can create a logger just for that function that adds to the namespace with the function name in it, and then do the logs from there. And so it just makes logging more consistent and I think a little bit simpler, but all right, so there was that. Okay, and then the custom log function. So we can do a log function that takes a level, and then it takes the data that we want to log. And in my case, what I want to do is I want to call require util.inspect, and I'm going to inspect the data, and I'm going to do colors true, depth 1, let's see, depth null. Okay. And now I'll do a.child. So I'll take that child logger and create a second child logger, and I'll specify the log function as my log function. So now I'll do b.debug the thing, and I think this will not happen because log level, so I got a born, and that didn't do anything either. Oh, because I'm an idiot. I returned it, but I need to actually send it somewhere. Sorry about that. So console level. Whoops. What did I do? Sorry. I forgot to actually log the inspected data out. Now I need to call this something different. Okay. All right, let's try that again. Let's do b equals a.child log function g. Okay. Now let's try. There we go. Okay. So now I made my custom log function that uses the util. I'm sorry, the inspect util of node. Format it so it's not JSON, and I told it to use colors, so I got my colors in there. So essentially, I took the same data that I was getting from before that was in JSON. So if I do that same thing but with the original logger, right, it comes out like this because that's the default logger. But in this one, I was able to format it however I want. So in the case of the browser, we could do fun stuff like use CSS to make the text bigger or change the background color or do other kind of cool stuff when we log stuff out. And we can have that built into this log function. All right, so one more cool thing about the logger then. The biggest thing is we log a lot of errors. And so we want logged errors to have some consistency to how they're logged. And so let's do this. Let's do a error log, and I'm going to just do some new test error here. All right, so that's the output to that one. Let's use our B logger because that's got a better output. All right, so here, when you pass in an error as the first parameter, so error always has to be the first parameter to the logger, just for consistency in the code base. We get this error object, we log out the message, we log out the stack. One of the things we do with the stack in order to shorten the logs is we only ever take the first 6 lines of the stack trace. Hopefully that's enough. We can adjust that in the future, but I figured 6 seemed like a reasonable number so that these logs weren't massive. And then the kind of error it is. So in this case, it's just a plain error. But if I did like a type error, right, then I would know that it was a type error, all that cool stuff. All right. So now this leads into step part 2, which is named errors. So in our named error package, the whole idea here is that we can do error handling by checking the type of error that was thrown rather than having to scrape the message and trying to figure it out, or just have dumb error handling that it doesn't know how to do different things based on what error came back. So these are some kind of pre-built ones, but it's very easy to make your own error too. So we've got this create error class function here. So if I want to make my own error, I do create error class, and I'll call it my error. And now I've got my own error. So now I can say var c equals new my error, the things, and we now have our own custom named error. So the cool thing with doing this is in packages like market service, swapper, chain adapters, right? We can create named errors for very specific situations. So we could have a named chain adapter error that handles certain cases like the network not being available or other things like that. And then on the web side, we can check instance of, right? So what I can do is I can say, if the instance of my error, I've got someone needs to be muted. Someone definitely needs to get muted. Okay. Console.log. Right. So now we can do these cool checks. And so in a catch statement, right, you could say, oh, if the error is an instance of rate limit error, then we're going to show a message to the user being like, oh, sorry, you're being rate limited. Please wait a little bit. If it's not a rate limit error, then we can show them a different message or do different things. So this, I think, improves our ability to handle different types of errors. All right. So we've got that. Now, one thing you'll notice here is this cause property. So this is actually a ES 2022 spec feature. You can create an error that has a cause. So what I can do is I can be like, okay, here's, my error. But you can say that that error was thrown because of some other error. And check that cool stuff out. All right, so now, so what we could do is we could do e dot, let's say this is actually a rate limit error. And the rate limit error actually has its own cause. That was a new, like, Axios error or something like that, right? Gotta get all the, check that out. So we can start chaining errors together now, which is super cool. So now in a package, you can be like, oh, I got a network error back, or I got some error from 0x. I can roll that up into, another error, and then that can get rolled up into another error. And now when we log this out somewhere, we can be like, oh my gosh, we had an error in a package that was caused by this, that was actually caused by this. So you kind of get this chain of errors. You can kind of see the sequence of events that happen. So I think that's a pretty cool. Now, how does this apply to logging? Well, if we remember our logger, let's do b.error, and voila. So now our logger goes, oh, that's right, you're one of these cool new errors that we've got. So we can log out this error code. I'll talk about details in a second and code in a second. But it knows about cause. It knows cause was an error. So again, it formats the cause as an error and cascades that down. So we actually get to see the error chain right here in our log entry, which is very cool, in my opinion. And all beautifully formatted, where the error happened at, right? What time it happened, what function it happened in, all that cool. All right. So now we go to code. So all of these named errors that we have a code property. So one of the things we have with errors is that, like, we just have this string. So if we want to display something to a user, most of our error messages are in English, but that's bad for translation. So what we want to do is have errors that we can translate to the user to show different things. So if I look at the rate limit error, for example, and I can just say like, oh, we got like, Infura rate limit or whatever. All right. Okay. So what do we show to the user in this case? Well, what we can do is we can get the code property and we go, oh, the code for this error is rate limit. I can go look that up in a translation table. And now I have a message that I can display. Now, the other thing that we can do is we can actually create a custom error. So we could say, well, this is actually a, rate limit, Infura error. So let's do that, right? So now we can check the code and have that. So the codes allow us to have these kind of translation indexes. So we can go and look them up and we can have internationalized, you know what I'm saying. Okay. So the next thing after code is details. So details is pretty cool because a lot of times you have an error in a function, let's say the new rate limit error, right? Oh no. But you want to provide some additional detail about like why it happened. So you could say, well, the arguments to this function were, let's say the URL that we called was blah, and the params that we passed to the URL were, X and Y. And we also had the asset ID set to, Moses. Actually, this would be Cosmos. Cosmos, whatever, Osmosis 1. Okay. All right. So now when you get the error back, you get those details embedded in the error. And then if I were to log that error out, so I log out Z, and then I say, this bad thing happened. And so I get my message, I get the code that happened, I get the details about what the parameters were that were passed in when the error happened, etc., etc. So basically, we now have errors that are much more robust. We can include more data in the errors. We can chain errors together. We can translate errors. We can create named errors so that we can have better error handling for very specific states of errors. And it all gets logged out beautifully because the logger understands the additional structure that's available from these extra errors. So that is my demo. Thanks for listening to me for the last 20 minutes.
Super appreciate you stepping up here without advance warning and showing off some stuff that you've been working on. Really, really cool.
I'll also say that it is possible to run a demo where everything works.
Happens every blue moon or so.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Any questions? Well, thanks.
Cool. Thank you. DeFi might be our surprise of the day. While we've been demoing, he's been hard at work on something.
Yeah, GM. I mean, I haven't been hard at work. The rest of the team has. But yeah, Cosmos staking and delegating is now live in production. So you can go check that out now. It works with native wallet, works with KeepKey. Yeah, pretty much it. So it's been a long time in the making, but it's finally out. So congrats to the team, and go and stake your Atom to our validator.
Super sweet. Just did. I think I like our experience better than any of the others I've been using too.
I think Gomes gave a full kind of demo of it previously, the functionality, but yeah, it's all there.
Awesome. Well, congratulations to you and everyone, all of engineering, on the hard work that went into that. And we've got Cosmos staking up in our open source V2 app, which we never got up back in beta, despite some talk. So that's great. And extends to other Cosmos chains as far as the staking support as well, because of the way it was put together. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
The underlying libraries also have IBC support now, so I can imagine some interesting features being built on top of that.
This is awesome. When I go to look up the Atom asset, I also see Atom on Osmosis in the dropdown.
Yeah. So it's actually a different asset. So because we support the way like IBC works, you can bridge assets across to different chains.
Yeah.
So Osmo is a different chain, so it's a bridged asset. It has different pricing because it's it's a different asset. It has the same symbol and the price should track pretty closely, but if you bridge your Atom over to Osmo chain, that's what you'll be seeing there. So separate balances, kind of similar to how you've got ERC20 rune or BEP rune or native rune. They can be upgraded or whatever, but they are underlying assets are different.
Yeah, I just didn't know we support the Osmosis assets on Osmosis.
Well, soon, once we have the Osmosis PRs in, like right now, now your balance is going to show up there. It's probably just going to be 0, but yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
so I'll clarify supports, right? The app, there is no one level of support, right? We can support something in the sense of we can show it as an asset. We can support something that we can get market data. We can support. So in this case, we have the asset available, but it's not many other parts of the system don't have it integrated yet.
I understand.
So is that just hard coded showing 0 for the balance? We should probably get rid of that asset then, because it's misleading.
Well, I can see the price chart.
Yeah, we don't have to get rid of it. We can see the price chart for it. We just can't send and receive. We don't have Osmosis Unchained up yet, so you won't have a balance for it. But the price detail is there already. There's a lot of Osmosis assets that are supported. If you search for on Osmosis, you'll see all of those assets that are there preemptively with the prices, but no functionality yet.
They'll all show 0 for my balance, even if I import a seed that has IBC assets on Osmo.
Yeah, that's why we're saying there's different levels of support, right? I don't think we want to put ourselves in a situation where it's we can only have this asset if we can do everything with it, right? So we're trying to show here that it's possible to have, various levels of quote unquote support for something.
I should just pull the screen up. It's clear that it's like a view only thing of the asset.
When I click on send, there is no send is grayed out. When I click on receive, I get a blank modal. So there's no way I could try. I can't get an address to try to send to. So
okay,
maybe a message on that receive screen that says not yet supported for receives or something might help. But at least I can't do anything that's going to lose me money.
Sounds like one for product.
Yeah.
We can definitely implement that.
Yeah, that would be a good bounty ticket, right?
Yeah, easy one. Thank you.
Sweet. Cool. Well, unless anyone else wants to demo or bring up a topic to discuss or ask me questions, we'll probably wrap it up.
You know, I just wanted, like, what's so cool about this is, can you buy atoms directly from Gem?
That's a good question.
It would be. No, you can't. Okay. So anyway, you can still, like, this is still the quickest on-ramp to be able to earn yield on Cosmos, is you can buy Cosmos on Coinbase, send it to ShapeShift, and get 15% yield automatically, and cheap transaction costs. I'm telling friends.
Hey, get 100% of your rewards instead of 50%. At least last time I looked, Coinbase was delegating to their validator and giving you about half.
Yeah, I think Coinbase is 5%, and we're offering 15%.
Triple.
Yeah, if you
pays to self-custody.
So awesome. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it to have this feature.
Yeah, me too. What dexes have Atom? Gravity, Osmosis, but that's going to be IBC. I'm just trying to think through the, like what you said about Gem and being able to like directly, like what's the simplest path in lieu of that? The Coinbase thing, I guess.
We do have Banks coming soon, I believe, that supports a few other native assets.
Yep. Cool. Well, thank you, everyone. Appreciate you coming. Super appreciate everyone that presented. And again, super appreciate all the hard work and engineering that got Cosmos, full Cosmos support, or I guess close. We don't have voting. And thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Adam. GM, guys.